Hi, I'm Bob Schmidt with Home Remodel Workshop. Little gaps like this in our baseboard and dinks that happen in the corner of some of our casing, and even small gaps in existing plywood panels. Sometimes even though they're very small, they really catch your eye when you walk into the room. With something as simple as a little screwdriver, you can make these appearances. Although they won't disappear, they won't be quite as eye-catching with a little bit of work with this screwdriver. I'll show you what you need to do. Let's get to work. I built this little mock-up out of veneer plywood. What's veneer plywood? What veneer plywood is a good finished hardwood surface on top of basically plywood. Less expensive layers of veneer in here. You can get a lot more board feet out of veneer plywood for the dollar than you can if you use solid wood. Now, the problem with using veneer plywood is, let's say you need a nice finished outside corner and you put a miter on this. Even though this looks good from afar, as you see when you get up close, it looks far from good. Now, what I use to repair that is something real simple. A little bitty screwdriver. It has a round shaft on it. Now, it doesn't have to be a screwdriver, but pretty much anything with a round shaft will work. To work that corner, what I do is I take the round shaft of this small screwdriver and, working it ever so gently from both sides, I start to rub these two pieces of wood together. Now, anybody who's worked with birch veneer plywood knows that if you take a piece of sandpaper to this, in no time at all, the plywood is, you're through the veneer, and then the stain doesn't take right, it doesn't look right. Another common happening when you're doing home remodel projects is like in this piece of baseboard here, where even though you took a lot of care, sometimes when it gets installed, about the time you nail it back, this corner cracks open. Although this doesn't necessarily take care of all the problem as far as the gap, you'll come to find that the more you soften it, the smaller that gap is going to appear. Now, I know that somebody's going to say, well, why don't you just take a little bit of caulk and fill that in? Well, the problem with that is what you end up with is two caulk lines, or two sharp lines with some caulk in between. As you see, with just a little bit of work, we've taken that gap and we've decreased it to maybe a quarter or a fraction of its size. I came around to the front and I worked on this a little bit more where I could see it, and I decided, after rounding it just about as much as I felt good about, as you can see, we decreased the size of it significantly. I'm going to take a little bit of my favorite filler here, and I'm going to just very lightly dab it and get that crack filled in, making sure I work that into the hole a little bit, so that when the paint goes on here, it's going to look like a real nice finished surface. With just a little bit of rounding on this corner, it decreased the size of that gap significantly, even though it seems like it wouldn't have. And then I used just a small amount of wood fill, and I brushed it off just a slight amount with my sandpaper to give it a little bit of a blend. Paint should flow smoothly around this corner, and that will no longer be an eyesore. Especially in existing trim, is this dink in a corner. Now, I wanted to hit my newel post once, just to put a little dink in it so that we could work on it, but my wife said no for some reason. But anyway, if something is being moved and something hits this corner, creating a dink like this, a lot of times if you try to fill this with spackle right off the bat, what ends up happening is it cracks out, it's real soft, it comes loose, it's real hard to adhere. If you use the same principle on this, as you used on the rest, and you slowly work the corners through the dink, to the dink, and just blend them off to nothing, that dink becomes a little bit less and less as you go, much improving its appearance and making it not stand out quite as much. With this outside corner, this little veneer patch, and where this dink was, although this repair doesn't make them disappear completely, it definitely takes it so that it doesn't draw your eye to it. So it's that annoying thing that stands out to you when you come in the room. I hope this helps out your problem with some of your home repairs. I'm Bob Schmidt with Home Remodel Workshop. If you're not interested in this tip, please check out our home channel. We have many other videos there. Thanks.